Finding the horses is quite confronting. The poor things have been tied up on a short lead for 4 months. They've hardly been walked. Their muscles have withered away and they're covered in thick muck and grime. The worst thing is their feet. The horseshoes from 4 months ago are still on, and yet their hooves have grown out. It looks so disgusting and I'm paranoid that rot has set in. Somehow I have to bring this journey back out of the ashes. I've got to bring the horses back to life. I've got to get my gear organised. I've got to dust off the cobwebs and get my brain into gear, because honestly, I feel like I've just stepped out of the grave. It took me a long time, but eventually I cleaned the horses and brought in a farrier. Despite the condition of my horses, I'm still grateful to this man for keeping them alive. I had to leave them so abruptly, and there's a real lack of grain and hay here. If it wasn't for him, they would be dead. I brought him gifts, but although very poor, he wouldn't take any money. It's finally time to say goodbye. It's such a relief to be moving again. Tiggin's just like a bull at a gate. He can't wait to run. I've just left Kodama, and it's exactly 5 months to the day that I camped right on this very patch of grass here. And it's actually while I was here at this camp that I now know that Dad passed away in the car accident. It's a really scary moment, because I know if I move forward from here, I'm moving on without Dad. I'm going into territory that I've never been before. So I'm just going to have to put my head down, 1 foot in front of the other. This is the scariest thing I've ever done, to go on alone. Perhaps the blossom a sign that a dark winter indeed has passed. The nomads have taught me so much about the transience of life, and it's really helping me now. I'm calmed by the snow and decide that it's a good day to stay put and recuperate. I can't describe how nice it is to see the horses frolicking. They've been through hell locked up in that barn for 4 months. Somehow the day in the snow's been just enough time for me to process things, and in this clear frosty morning I feel ready to start moving on. The horses' energy is beginning to lift. They're on the same path of rehabilitation as me. My mood always seems to be tied to that of my animals. I head further west into Ukraine, and the steppe gives way to hills with hidden villages in the valleys. A couple of weeks on, I was invited in by this old babushka. She was 96 years old and only learnt to read at 83. She still walks barefoot into the hills every day to take her goats out to graze. I'm finding this unbelievable. How can anyone even live that long? It's so ironic that Dad died when he was 56. And she's singing these mournful songs about Golodomir. Golodomir was the famine during the early 30s when a huge proportion of Ukrainians starved to death because of Stalin's collectivization policies. Somehow she's survived this era. I find her so inspirational.
Скорбью душою змовкає мій весняний спів.
Ладно. Щасливо. Ви махайте руками. Давай, пошли в воді. As we travelled further on up the valley, we came across the village of Bilcha-Zoloty. When the mayor of the town saw me, he was jumping out of his skin. He saw my journey as a chance to put his town on the map and was quick to haul in the local media and put on a special itinerary just for me. Starting off with accommodation and, of course, a bath in the local sanatorium.
Санаторій тут супер, тут питань нема. Супер санаторій.
One of the treats is being able to come here and have a salt bath, and it's got special oil in here from the pines, that's why it's brown. The mayor is really doing his best to kind of treat me like a king, and he quietly came over and said that I can have everything I want, and if necessary, a girl for the night.
Ти шляхом праведним святим шла до бої Україну.
The mayor of the village, of course, has arranged all this, and he's in the driver's seat. So it's a very romantic experience. Eventually I had to escape this town. The mayor was a bit of an alcoholic and a little bit obsessive. He wouldn't let me out of his sight for a second. When I finally did get out of town, I was making camp, and at about 3 in the morning I was woken. He was rolling drunk. He'd been fishing, and he brought me a big pike to eat.
Пане полковнику, мій синьок.
Україна.
Тім, напевно, трошки на світ засвітить, так, більше золоте. То з часом до нас тут прийдуть інвестори, і в нас буде і ставок, і млинок, і вишневенький садок. Дай Боже здоров'я.
Ну давай.
За нас, за всіх.
За вами.
Дай Боже.
The people I've met since my return have refilled me with energy and inspiration. My horses have regained their strength too, and perhaps it's just in time. I now have to face the towering Carpathians, one of the biggest mountain ranges in Europe and the final barrier for the invading Mongols. I'm still grieving, and sometimes I wonder whether I should be back in Australia with my family. But the animals always lift my spirits. They've become my family. When things are bad, I only have to look down to Tigan's eyes and I know everything's okay. Ogonyok's been with me for 2.5 years. He's a strong and gentle horse, but so paranoid that he'll bolt at the sound of his own fart. Cock, well, he's still a young teenager. He's finding his feet and he's a bit awkward and a little bit uncoordinated. But luckily I've got Taskin here. He's been leading me since Mongolia. He's got a great sense of seniority, and I know that he'll keep the other guys in line when they misbehave. I've been travelling alone and filming myself since leaving Mongolia 3 years ago. But I'm now joined by a cinematographer friend. He's going to walk with me for 3 weeks to film me through the Carpathians. The point of me being here is to put myself through the same conditions that nomads went through on their journeys to Europe. Mongol warriors believed that their world conquest was a mandate from Tengri, the father god of the eternal blue sky. They believed that the earth, Edgy, was their mother god, and in a moment of great crisis, Genghis Khan turned his prayers to a sacred mountain, and the mountain gave him strength. I crossed the first ridge of the Carpathians. Little change from the steppe. It's a different world. When I slipped down into the valley over the other side of the ridge, it was as if another whole world had opened up. This was the home of the Hutsuls, mountain people who've been fiercely independent for hundreds, if not thousands of years. During World War II, they fought against both the Nazis and the Russians. And somehow, throughout the Soviet era, they managed to preserve their identity, their culture and traditions. Like the people on the steppe where I'd come from, their life revolves around the horse. The Hutsul horses are actually the descendants of those left behind by the Mongols when they retreated from Europe. You can see the black line running down its back. That's actually a remnant of the Tarpan horse, which used to be a wild horse on the steppe. The amazing thing is that this saddle is a spitting image of the saddles that I was seeing 3 years ago when I began this journey. So perhaps here in the Carpathians we're seeing one of the last legacies of the Mongols in Europe. I descended to the village of Krivorivnya, where I met this tall, imposing figure, Ivan. He looked a bit like Jesus Christ.
Hello, Tim. С приездом к нам.
Добрый день. Спасибо. I speak Russian and I'm starting to understand Ukrainian too.
У вас тут всегда так весело.
Весело всегда. Жить некогда, только веселиться.
Ivan decided to take me under his wing and explained that he used to be a mountaineer. While climbing in the Tian Shan of Central Asia one day, he arrived at a peak and realised that he just wanted to go higher and higher, and that's where he found his belief in God. The church really is the heart of this community. The more I get to know these people, the more I see traces of the nomad culture that I've come to know so well. They openly admit that they've got a lot of Mongol blood in them. In fact, some of them point to each other and say, "Oh, she must have had a Mongolian father." You can see it in their eyes.
This is holy, святая вода, да.
My sister's daughter.
This is for you and for your friend. You can take it.
I found time to strike up a friendship with Irina, Ivan's niece. Horses have become my friends, and he's the most sensitive.
Sensitive.
First I was very afraid, and then slowly I came to understand them. And now I'm not afraid of them because I understand why a horse does what it does, because it's in its nature. And once I understood them, I'm not scared of them anymore. It's going to be hard to live without horses in the future. I think I'll miss them very much. You don't want to ride? You don't want to try?
A little bit later.
I always find it inspirational to speak with young people.
Слава Иисусу Христу.
Сейчас такой большой стал. У него, кстати, дети есть. Это была судьба, у него любовь был в России. Сказали, что я должен уже платить элементы. The children live a life that's close to nature, and you can see that in their happiness. They've got a kind of freedom. They don't know fences or borders. They've had these mountains to play in through their childhood. Every winter, Ivan has to walk through these mountains for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. He does it barefoot through the snow. Part of his job as the local priest is to visit every single person in his parish.
У нас на парафии более 600 домов. Таким образом осуществляется связь с людьми на парафии. Я знаю каждый дом.
He also has to bless every stream. His belief in God is directly related to his belief in his own culture, his own land.
О, Ганді! Вовк! Вовк! Вовк є.
In the nomad's belief, seeing a wolf is a sign of extremely good luck. The legend goes that when God was giving out land, the Hutsuls arrived late and were given mountains with poor soil and a harsh climate. But to compensate for that, God gave them incredible skills in craftsmanship and creativity. It's a common trait among nomads to colour their life with art. Vasil, who's now 84, has been making traditional hats from the age of 16. He makes about 100 every 6 months, and every single one is unique. And when the Hutsul people wear their clothing, you get the impression that they're not just wearing it for display. It carries the very soul of their way of life, of their ancestors. He even decides to show me his coffin that he personally handmade. Everyone does it up here in the Carpathians when they're about the age of 40. He's got his best clothes in there because he wants to be well dressed when he goes into the spirit world. They remember here that life is transient.
На гуцулському роду, бо гуцули файні люди.
Every spring, the semi-nomadic Hutsuls gather to celebrate the seasonal migration of their herds to the high pastures known as the Polonina. It's the same journey I'll be taking tomorrow. The festival turns into this amazing celebration. The local provincial governor comes by and takes me under his wing. Every stand here represents a different Hutsul village. And we've got to get around about 30 of them, and every single one they give us vodka. I don't know how on earth the governor's still on his feet by the end, because I hardly am. There's so much pride about their culture and their past. So purely a celebration for the sake of being together. Because this is life. I found Misha, a local farrier. He's making me some special winter horseshoes for the alpine crossing. Cook's never been shod before on his back legs, and running out of time and patience. And so I've decided not to shoe him, so hopefully he'll still be okay. The most important thing is that his front hooves are shod so he can get through the mountains.
First, when I heard about you, I was a little bit, I thought that you are a little bit odd. Because you took such a big trip. I don't know how to say it, so great. It's, and you have been traveling for 3 years.
Yes, almost.
But when I got acquainted with you closer, I understand that you are not odd. You are just brave. You're just a brave person.
Thank you very much. For a small space of time, I became a part of your life, and you became a part of mine. People in this area know the dangers of travelling up to the Polonina, where the weather can be very unpredictable. Because of that, Ivan decided to bless my horses, and even Tigan. And as we left, Ivan said to me, "May God give you strength."
We wish him good luck in his traveling, good weather, good and interesting interlocutors, and all the best from people who live in Krivorivnya.
I've refound my inspiration for life. And I realised that I really do believe in this nomadic way of living. I have to cross the main ridges of the Carpathians that lie between here and Hungary. This area is known for its violent electrical storms, and I can expect snow and ice. I've been living in fear of these mountains since I began, and now it's time to confront them. For centuries, people have been taking this path to the high plains of the Polonina. We soon came across a family that was also migrating up to the pasture. They were still sore and sorry from the celebrations of the day before. In fact, they were still drunk. They told me that I had to give them horses. Aggressive local. They said that because I wasn't a Hutsul, they were going to kill me, just like their forefathers had done to Russians and Nazis. I'm staying away from them, but I just can't believe these poor little horses of theirs. So I've just got another horse to come up, and interesting to see how they do this. This is something extremely tough. In a more peaceful place, I met Yuri and Gregory, two local mountaineers who agreed to help me get my horses over the high passes ahead. Finally, we emerge from the forest. Those poor Hutzel horses have somehow made it up too. We're heading towards the highest mountain in the Ukraine, and from there we're going to have to cross the main ridge, which is above 2,000 metres. It's going to be a big day for the horses. And it's constantly bombarded by storms. Last summer, there were 2 boys killed by lightning on this spot. The nomads have taught me to embrace whatever comes my way, the good luck and the bad. And as they say, trust in God, but always tie up the camel. After 5 hard days of climbing, we have to cross the highest ridge. But the weather's closed in, and it's difficult to find a way through. Beyond this final barrier lies Hungary, the end of the Great Eurasian Steppe. It's going to be a monumental task to get my horses over in one piece, then down to the Danube, the edge of the nomad world.
They're moving to the country for some peace and tranquility.
Some girls dream of a big white wedding. Mine was always the farmhouse on the hill with a little bit of land.
But first, they have to deal with heavy machinery, aggressive poultry, and out-of-control renovation budgets.
We've had a little bit of a chop.
If we spend that, I'll be crying.
Taking it easy can be hard work.
7 days a week, 12 hours a day, just on and on and on and on and on.
Where do we go from here?
Build a new life in the country, Saturday 8:30 on ABC2.
Eddie Izzard, one of the most acclaimed comedians of his generation, is returning to Australia.
How insane is that?
Touring nationally with his Force Majeure tour.
This is true. This is in Wikipedia, so do check it out.
Don't miss your chance to see Eddie Izzard live. For more details, visit abc.net.au/ABC events.
This story is completely true, and if you don't believe me, I'll smash your face in.
Welcome to Story Club,
where the stage is set for some tall tales and true.
Funny stories.
Weird stories.
There's an original thought, eh?
Deeply shameful stories.
Even reality TV doesn't have a category for you.
Stories like these.
As though a mad scientist had taken Clive Palmer's brain and put it into Clive Palmer's body.
Story Club, Wednesday at 10 on ABC2.
Sign it! Our new warrior.
She's been dying to see you, Beijing nurse.
What techniques did you learn? Tiger claw? Monkey fist?
Oh, tiger clawing, monkey fisting.
He's a butcher from Beijing, Simon!
I hear Simon Chan is dangerous. He trained in Beijing.
My son returns to vanquish the gangsters in government.
Yeah, about that. I never went to Beijing. I was in Melbourne doing a major in fine art and a minor in video installation.
No, it can't be true.
You did play with felt tip pens as a kid.
I need a fast track course in Kung Fu.
I need 12 years to train someone like you.
Your reign of on Market Street is over.
You're replacing our home with a car park?
We are not losing this house.
I'll tell my mom an artist.
If you were a filthy artist, I would set myself on fire.
I'm in deep. Maybe artist, but you're a great fake hero.
Show those little maggots who is boss. Kill them.
We may have lost this war, but the battle has only just begun.
What are you doing?
I'm busy!
You need a girlfriend?
Maximum Choppage starts February 24 on ABC2.
Hollywood Boulevard at night is the playground of the hip, young, and successful. It was into this world that Joe Bluth had finally arrived. Surrounded for the first time in his life by a group of admirers that comprised LA's latest young elite. There was Mark, a pop star who had a level of fame he could neither appreciate nor handle. Trout, a southern boy who had a northern man's taste in women. JBJ, a weekend weatherman, all-week party boy, and a huge disappointment to his father. Chris Kay, who was a lot like Trout, but without the accent. Oakwood, a studio teacher who might have had his own entourage if his part hadn't been cut from the pilot of Modern Family. And of course, there was the man they called Getaway. Job had come far in the years since his girlfriend was less than an hour from turning 18.
While we run the clock down on this thing, why don't you just go change into something a little less unflattering
And he was getting everyone in the mood for romance.
I'll take my clothes off.
While Anne less unflattered herself up, Job had an unexpected visitor, Anne's ex-boyfriend, George Michael, who, as it turned out, hadn't completely let go of the relationship.
You're lucky that I'm chasing after our girlfriend, or I'd have to flatten you.
Way to plant, Anne.
You told me George Michael knew about us.
Well, he does now, my darling plant.